What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Welcome back to another episode of What If You Could, and part two of our interview with Dr. David Wright, where today we're going to discuss how Dr. David helps people unpack their baggage and helps build them back up. But before we get to it, I just wanted to thank you for listening, watching, and just being there with us. And please, no matter where you are or what platform you might be listening on, it'd mean the world to us if you would please share, subscribe, or give us any feedback on how we're doing if you're enjoying our content and also the guests that we're having on the show. So thank you again. And now back to What If You Could, episode number 2 with Dr. David Wright.
I totally agree. If you look up definitions of, because we live in a society that tries to pigeonhole everything, and even though I'm an MD and I also consult in forensic and addiction psychiatry, and I have my own private practices, I don't practice medicine. I do life coaching, I do hypnosis, I do hypnotherapy, I do a lot of psychoanalytic types of things, I do cognitive behavioral therapies, a lot of outside the box techniques. I even create some of my own kind of techniques to help people deal with things like grief or trauma from childhood and things like that. But the thing about that whiteboard is the whiteboard is kind of like an etch a sketch. It's a way to unpack things and build them back up. If you take a building that's gotten old and decrepit and it's falling apart, you can only patch it up so much. At some point, you've got to demolish it and rebuild another building. You can rebuild it with some of the blocks that are still there, but you might have to build a new building.
Yeah.
And there's some risk involved. There's no guarantees. So I think you have to be willing to take some risks. And that's what I try to help people do is take calculated risks, betting on the best versions of themselves. In terms of the whiteboard, I really do think that it goes back to getting to the root of things. Um, when people ask me what I do, I say I come up with solutions, but I get to the root causes of things. If
Mhm.
you have a cough, the cough is not the problem. That's just a symptom of the problem. If you have a headache, the headache isn't the problem. That's just a symptom. In terms of a cough, it could be a virus, it could be bacteria, it could be dry throat, it could be dehydration. There could be a million uh, causes of it, and that's why you go to somebody who's qualified who can figure out what the cause of the cough is, especially if it's a chronic cough. It could be smoking, it could be pollution,
Mhm.
it could be a chronic infection, it could be a lot of different things. In the case of a headache, it could be inflamed brain tissue, or it could be blood vessels, or it could be hypertension. A lot of people who have high headaches all the time, their blood pressure is high, and that's a sign, a symptom that they might have a TIA or a stroke soon. So people should take headaches seriously, but you can't just look at the symptom. You've
Mhm.
got to look at the root cause. And
Well,
if you don't
but I
get to the
also
root
love that
cause,
when you're doing that, you're not just pushing pills. I love your
no,
stance on this massive inundation of drugs. It's like, hey, I have a hangnail. Well, here's some drugs, right? I mean, my wife and I just laugh. We don't watch television here at home. We have a cabin and there's TV there. So when we watch it occasionally, and I can't believe the commercial is a drug commercial, and we can't, we just look for the
they
warning.
shouldn't
We don't
even be
even hear the
legal.
commercial. So when you're talking about your healing, I mean, you're trying to heal people without just saying, hey, here, take this, right? You're looking at the core of what needs to be healed.
Well, the problem is if you keep taking stuff, then you're a taker, you're a consumer. And that's the bigger picture that people don't see. If you really want to find solutions, you have to look at the big picture, the macro, and you have to look at the dissection, the micro, the microscopic, and you have to go back and forth. That's kind of what I think that I do with people. I'm a lens. I help people zoom in and zoom out so they can see everything. And that whiteboard aids me in that. But you have to be able to zoom in and zoom out. If you are constantly a consumer and not a creator, you're going to be a consumer forever. You're going to have to go to something for everything. You're going to be taking a pill for everything. I'm not happy. Okay, here's a pill. This is not working out. I'll take a pill. I don't feel like going to work. Okay, take a pill. What are you going to do? I take a lot of supplements today. I mean, every day, but those are supplements. I'm not
Yeah.
taking a bunch of medications, but you can't take a pill for everything. You can't. And that's the society that we live in, that wants to package everything up for sale and make you a
And you know this
consumer
better
instead of a creator.
yeah, you know this better than me because this is your profession. But I mean, I've got friends now. When I was going through the cancer treatment and stuff, I was just fighting the stuff that they wanted to give me. And I've got friends who like, well, I went to the doctor for this and they gave me this, and then they gave me this to offset that, and then they gave me,
Yep.
and they go, the next thing I know, I'm taking five
A house of cards. A
pills,
house of
and
cards.
I'm like, I don't
Yep.
even remember what I went there for anymore. I'm on so much stuff, right?
Well, I mean, that happens with stimulants all the time. So, and I'm one of these people. I was diagnosed with ADHD in college. And I think when I was younger, maybe I was bright enough to overcome it. But every report card I had said the same thing. I would, have straight A's. And it's like, David's great. He's a very bright kid, but he finishes his work and he disturbs others. I mean, that's what he's a talkaholic. And I mean, I was bored. It wasn't my fault. They should have challenged me more. That was the problem.
Yep.
But we live in a society that just wants to give people easy answers and not allow them to solve problems or find a way or a solution system to come to ways to solve challenges and problems. And that's the part the part that doesn't get to the root cause, and that doesn't make sense, because if you give somebody, let's say, Adderall or Ritalin or Focalin or Vyvanse for ADHD, well, you're ramping up their metabolism. That's part of what you're doing. You're stimulating the the brainstem to do that, and they won't be able to fall asleep at night. Then you give them something to fall asleep, and so you give them, and then once they fall asleep, then you've disrupted their normal sleep cycle, right, and their sleep spindle. So then you've got to give them something to kind of wake up in the morning, and it's just like this cascade of a house of cards that's going to fall. The same thing is true when people take benzodiazepines for anxiety. So many psychiatrists prescribe benzos day in and day out. Benzos are addictive. They're addictive, just like opioid narcotics, like OxyContin and oxycodone. And a lot of patients aren't even told that. Oh, just take this pill for your nerves. It's addictive.
Yeah, yeah. I
And,
was,
and, and you reference the commercials. The stuff that they say or omit from those commercials is highway robbery. It's awful, and you wonder why we have an addiction problem in this country. It's because of those things that
yeah.
they just let drug companies do whatever. It's awful.
How are you helping people? How do you find that when you're working with people and people are just so naturally programmed now to go, well, can't you just give me something for it? Right? I mean, so how do you get around that with people? How do you say, listen, let's try this instead, right?
Oh my God, that's a great question. I love that question, and the reason why I love it is because the answer is not a good one. It's an uphill battle. Honestly, I get people. I joke about this on my podcast sometimes. So that was a brilliant question, but I get that question all the time. It's an uphill battle because I'm competing against all these instant fixes. You know what I mean? And it's tough when I'm like, you're having panic attacks. You're not be able to make it through your day. Let's work through this. Let's get to the root cause of it. Let me teach you some exercises. Let me teach you some methods of dealing with anxiety,
Mhm.
getting rid of the existing anxiety, working through some of the child trauma that caused it in the first place, versus them going to somebody else. Here's a pill. Take this. Come back in 60 days. It's hard to compete, and I get so many appointment requests from people who are like, I've gone to 5 psychologists, I've been to 3 psychiatrists, I've tried this pill, that pill, this pill. Dr. Wright, can we schedule one hypnosis session to fix my problems? And I'm like, what problems? And they're just like, oh, well, I've got major depressive disorder, I've got generalized anxiety disorder, I've got ADHD, I've got PTSD, I've got borderline personality disorder, I've got a nicotine addiction, I drink too much. Can we schedule one hypnotherapy session to fix that? And and I'm like, no. But we live in a world of quick fixes, and that's the problem. That's the same problem with AI. AI is a quick fix,
Yeah,
but look at the long-term consequences. When
yeah,
you fix problems, big problems, without getting to the root cause of it with band-aids, you're going to end up with a bad problem. And,
yeah,
and, it, and it makes perfect sense if you think about it logically. If somebody gets stabbed, A Band-Aid's not going to fix it. It's just not. It's not. You could try, but sooner or later the person's going to bleed out and die.
Yep.
But that's what we do. We take somebody who's been cut, they've got 34 stab wounds, and we're like, okay, well, here's one Band-Aid. That should do it for now. No,
Yeah.
it
And
won't.
it's like you said, we live in a microwave society. We live in an instantaneous society. And
Instant gratification.
it's funny with exactly instant gratification, and it's gotten worse for social media. I mean, if you put on a video that's just really good and really insightful, but it's over 30 seconds, forget about it. If it's over 5 seconds, forget about it, right? People won't even engage for 5 seconds.
They
Right?
want the
They'll be
Happy
like,
Meal.
moving on, moving on, moving on.
Yeah,
It's
they
like,
want the Happy Meal.
yeah, and the challenge is a Happy Meal will make you sick. I mean, the Happy Meal, it's like the dude who
The
did
Happy
this
Pill.
movie
The
about
Happy Meal, the
eating at
Happy Pill. Yeah.
eating at McDonald's all the time, right? Super Size Me.
Super size.
Excuse me, right? He just died. But
Oh,
but
really?
that movie was so tragic. I mean, he barely made it through that 30 days, right? What
Yeah.
was happening to his body?
He was about to have a heart attack.
Yeah, and the thing is, people still eat like that every day. I mean,
More
you
so
go to,
now since the pandemic. People
yep,
don't cook as much now. And that's why that's another hidden reason why the economy's so bad. The economy is not just bad just because everything's inflated 15, 20, 30% for 3 or 4 years in a row, which means things have basically doubled in price. That's not the only reason. The other reason why is because people aren't cooking and stuff anymore. They're not. They can just order their meals and have them delivered every day, fresh meal or fresh whatever it's called, or they can just go out to eat. That's also why everybody needs Ozempic now, and everybody's gained weight, and everybody's morbidly obese and things like that.
mhm,
People are just looking for instant solutions. But the thing about it is there's no such thing as an instant solution. Solutions are never, ever, ever instant. It
yeah.
doesn't work that way. It's not a solution if it's instant.
Yep, yeah, and it's just when the cancer treatment, I went to the specialist, I talked to everyone, I trusted my team very much, but I honestly feel they just went through, throat cancer for dummies. They just did this. They go 35/7. You're a 35/7. I'm like, well, what's that? And I got 35 radiations and 7 chemos. Gonna do surgery. We're gonna remove your tongue. That's why I got this stupid lisp. We're gonna remove this, remove that. Then we're gonna radiate the crap out of you. And at the same time, we're gonna do the chemo. So my brother happens to be a chemo pharmacologist, right? He does chemo drugs for Kaiser. So I said, "Hey Ricky, I have this," and he goes, "You're probably gonna be a 35/7." And I'm like, "What? What is this?" Everybody
A
knows that this is
formula.
like, and I'm
You're a
like,
formula.
is everyone just exact same, but they just put
One
you
size fits
on that
all.
hamster wheel of, and the thing, they did the same thing to my first wife. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna chemo you to death until you just die, right? And there have to be some sort of, I understand cancer is pretty wicked, but there have to be some holistic ways and other ways to help start treating us instead of just pills frying us, like you said, happy meals for happy instantaneous thing. There just has to be a different way, right?
Well, and I mean, and I talk about that in my book, The Nutrient Diet. The thing about it is in my opinion, nutrition is the first cure. It really is. If anybody goes back to the season 1 of my episode, Fresh Start with Dr. David, and listens to the first couple of episodes, you'll hear where I talk about how our healthcare system is not a healthcare system. It's an illness care system.
Yeah.
It's a system based upon something going wrong, not about preventing things from going wrong in the first place. It really isn't. So it should be preventative. And there are tons of things. I mean, that's where medications came from in the first place, herbs and plants. So that's really where the answer is. It's not in a lab, it's in a plant, and it's in the things that you put in your body every day. I always tell people the first medication is your meal. And that's one of the reasons why I share what I eat and what I cook, and I take pride in it, and things like that is the first thing that you should do to address any problem, psychological, medical, mental health, acute, chronic, whatever, is diet,
Mhm.
water,
What
fresh
do you think? What do you
vegetables.
think about? I don't want to get in the COVID vaccine because that's a whole rabbit hole, snake pit. But what do you think about vaccines in general, like autism and what's happening? This like explosion of things that are happening to people and
You mean
children,
a link, the proposed links between vaccines and the rates and
and just
incidence
everything.
and
Like,
prevalence of yeah. So they started talking about that maybe 20 years ago. There were a couple of I can't remember her name, but there was the young lady who the African American lady who starred on 21 Jump Street. If anybody remembers that from the 80s, 21 Jump Street. It was a series that came on. The guy who does all the I can't remember the name of the movie series, but the movie series, Johnny Depp, with all the treasure or whatever, all those things,
yeah,
he was on there. That's how he got his big start, was with 21 Jump Street. And the thing about it is, when you look at that, she was one of the prominent people who believed that metals and other things, impurities, or the vaccines themselves were what led to higher rates of and incidence of autism. Here's my belief, and I haven't published a paper on it. I don't, but here's what I believe. I believe that most things that happen when you talk about conditions, whether it's mental health or general medical conditions, are multifactorial. That's one of the big things that you learn your second year of medical school, when you start doing clinical stuff and you take pathophysiology and all those kind of things. Multifactorial just means caused by many factors and many forces or many different things. Many factors are involved in the development of this. When it comes to vaccines, this is what I think. I think in general vaccines are a good thing. I think they're improvement in terms of livelihood and how many people, statistics, the number of children who live versus die and things like that. But I think the problem is that it's a one size fits all thing. I don't think the human body was designed to be injected with that many things at that concentration all at the same time. And I'll tell you an example. One of the things that I noticed when I got my most recent COVID vaccine, or booster, I should say, was in February, and I'm probably going to go and get another booster soon. But one of the things that I noticed is I didn't get the same side effects that I got from the booster that I had prior to that. The booster that I had prior to that, thank God my mom was in town, but I literally could not get out of bed the next day. I could not. I couldn't move. I could not ambulate out of bed. I couldn't.
wow,
And then 4 hours later, I'm perfectly fine. But that didn't happen this time around. Now, the federal government and the CDC and none of those people came out and said the other booster was too strong, but this one was definitely weaker. So that's the problem. We had this pandemic. Where's the task force? They're gone. COVID hasn't gone away. There's still shots around. What are they educating the public about? All the different symptoms, side effects? Nothing.
nope,
I
yeah,
mean, nothing, zero. So yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to have a kid get 7 shots all at one time, and then 6 months later get 4 more shots, and then 6 months later get five. No, why would you do that all at once? Our immune system. One of the things that people don't understand from an embryological standpoint is our immune systems co-develop with our neurological system. They develop together from stem cells. And so when you damage one, you damage the other. And so you shouldn't overstimulate the immune system with too many things all at once. You can handle one thing, right? It's like if you had emergencies, right? If you're preparing a banquet, let's say you're preparing for, let's say, Labor Day or Memorial Day in your kitchen, you're having your whole family over, and you're cooking stuff. If you're trying to get a bunch of stuff done, you're kind of cook 30 dishes at one time. You overheat one thing, and next thing you know, you're focused on that, and then the other thing overheat. It's going to be a big mess. But
yeah,
if you're just focused on one thing, it's a different story. You can handle it. So I don't think the human body was designed to handle that many toxins. That's what they are if you haven't been
yeah,
exposed to it. Germs, viruses, whatever, they're toxins.
yeah,
At one time, I don't. And I think that is associated with the rise in autism and other things too. I
yeah.
sure do.
We hope you enjoyed part 2 with Dr. David Wright. Join us next time for part 3.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.